here to talk about the health criteria, which is a requirement to do with people's health, obviously. That's part of every visa application, regardless if you're applying for a short visitor visa or for a permanent forever visa. There's always a criterion there in relation to your health. Now, what is the Australian government looking for when they ask people to have health exams and then look at the health criteria? They're either worried about diseases or conditions that could be dangerous to the community, such, for example, tuberculosis, because that's contagious, or conditions and diseases where the treatment would create problems for an Australian who also needs the same treatment. So think about someone who needs an organ transplant, and that person is applying for a student visa to be in Australia. If that person is going to need another heart or another liver, that may be a problem for the community because an Australian would want to get that organ first. The government's looking at that type of thing. But the most common problem with health criteria not being met in a visa application is when we look at the cost for treatment or management of a disease or a condition. So there's something called the threshold, which is $51,000. And like I said, if you're applying for a visitor visa and you have a health condition or a disease that requires treatment, pharmaceuticals or therapeutic treatment, management with a doctor, they're gonna look at how much that would cost the government for a hypothetical person for the period of your visa. Like I said, on a visitor visa, you can stay for 3, 6 months, sometimes a year. They're only gonna look at that period of time. But if you're applying for a permanent visa, then they're gonna look at the next 10 years after your permanent visa is approved. So again, $51,000 if you're coming for 3 months. Most conditions and treatments would not require expense of over $51,000. But if you're looking at 10 years for a visa, a permanent visa, then it can be a problem. And if you fail the health criteria, then your visa will be refused, unless the visa you're applying for has what we call a health waiver. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, when I say a hypothetical person, the Australian government is going to calculate how much a person with your condition, with your symptoms, your age, how much that person would need to manage or treat the condition or disease that person has. And they are not going to look into if you're wealthy, if you have private health insurance. They want to know how much a hypothetical person would spend. So if your visa application is of a subclass that does not have a health waiver, then if what the medical officer of the Commonwealth, the MOC, what they believe the cost for you or a hypothetical person in your situation would be, if that's over $51,000, then most probably your visa would be refused. Now, only a couple of visa subclasses have what I just mentioned earlier, that is called the health waiver. So those subclasses, a couple of the most known ones are a partner visa application and, for example, a permanent 186 employer nomination visa under the TRT, temporary residence transition stream only. So being permanent visas, these visas, the medical officer of the Commonwealth, or how we call them, the MOC, will look at some conditions and will say, well, for the next 10 years, because you're applying for a permanent visa, this person will cost the government more than $51,000. And that's under policy, not under legislation. And then they, instead of refusing your visa, as they would refuse if you're applying for a general skilled migration visa, for example, a parent visa, then the case officer in charge of your application within the Department of Home Affairs will send a letter to you or your agent saying that you have failed the health criteria, but they won't be refusing your visa yet. They will give you or your agent an opportunity to argue your case. So you go from being a hypothetical person in general who will cost $100,000, for example, to your case in particular, and that's the health waiver. It's an opportunity for you and your representative to argue that, yes, my disease will cost $100,000 to treat over 10 years, but I am working and I have health insurance, I have savings, I have assets, my family in my country has properties, or I'm applying for a partner visa and my partner can support me because my partner works, has assets and savings, etc. So be very careful if you're applying for a permanent visa, especially. Not so much with temporary visas. With temporary visas, around 4 years is the maximum time you could get for a permanent temporary visa. So if you have a disease or a condition, you really should be talking to a registered migration agent before you apply for your visa, so you don't get any surprises. Every now and then we see people who didn't even know their condition would be a problem come to us after they've lodged a visa application and it has been refused, or they have been presented with the opportunity to exercise their health waiver and they don't know what to do. So check if your condition would be a costly one. Check if your condition would be causing prejudice to an Australian to access treatment for that condition, because then it gets harder to waive the health criteria. And most importantly, check if the visa you're applying for has the health waiver, because if it doesn't, and you have a condition that may cost the government more than $51,000 for that period of time, or it would cause an Australian to not have access to that treatment, as the organ transplant situation, and I explained, chances are your visa could be refused. So you need to know before you apply, you need to create a plan. So get in touch with us. We have a lot of experience with health conditions and health waivers here at Bravo, and we would love to have a chat with you on a consultation with our agents to understand your health condition and how it would impact your visa application. Now, there's another video here on our YouTube channel talking about people who are HIV positive. So that's one of the conditions, because the treatment requires medication every day for the rest of that person's life. Normally, the cost of the treatment for HIV, if you're applying for a permanent visa, is over $51,000. So have a chat with us. If the visa you're applying for has a health waiver, we have an awesome track record of getting approvals for that waiver, exercising the waiver and getting HIV positive clients their permanent visas approved if there's the health waiver, obviously. So check for that other video here as well, and get in touch with us via the link here in the description of this video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.